Hi, everyone. It's Jael Rothstein. I'm the author of the Heaven Sent series. My book, Atonement, is out now on Amazon. Check it out on Amazon or on my website, jaelrothstein.com. I have a very special guest here with me today, author Allie Parks. Welcome to the show, Allie.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Allie's got a new book that's coming out at the end of September called No Longer Me. This is a fictional book inspired by real life. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Allie?
Yeah, so hi everybody, this is my book here, No Longer Me, which is out on Amazon, available for pre-order at the moment for just $1.99, and it will be out on September the 21st, both ebook and paperback. So basically, No Longer Me, it is a fictional story, but it's life inspired by my story. So something happened to me about 8 years ago, which was very hard. So I've created that story to a fictional character. So it tells the story of a 27-year-old girl called Chloe, who seemingly has it all. She has a good job, nice family, friends, nice flat, is very happy, and is about to go off on the adventure of a lifetime when a sudden and shock diagnosis makes her world go from under her and her life falls to pieces. So No Longer Me follows the journey of her, what happens to her. I won't give it away because I want you to read the book. So it details the journey that she goes through, and basically details both the physical and the emotional recovery and the bit that she never saw coming. And basically it follows her on that journey, and it shows, teaches her the meaning of true love. So there is a little romantic twist in there, but it also it's about the love that she has for herself and for life in general. So hopefully it will raise awareness of the things that happened to me, but also maybe help and inspire other people by reading it as well. So as I say, it's fictional, but life inspired, and hopefully a book that will move you, that you'll find quite emotional, but also that you'll be really rooting for Chloe and find it quite uplifting in the end by the things that she learns from her journey.
Well, that sounds fantastic. I'm very much looking forward to that. So that's a fall launch. That's September 21st that will be available. But obviously now you can go out and order it now on Amazon. So we're going to jump right into our quick, what I drew this segment on was something that I used to love called the 5-minute interview, which is something I used to watch on short videos where they would get people of all kinds of different topics and they would interview them in 5 minutes. And that was the whole sort of inspiration for me for this segment. So let's launch right in with you. And just to remind the people that are watching, Allie sent me the questions, but I don't know the answers. She did not send the answers. I wanted to be surprised along with the audience for what they are. So first question, which revolves around writing, is what advice do you have for new writers that are just starting out?
So obviously myself being a new writer, and this is my first book and never done any writing before, so I felt I was quite in a good position to kind of help fellow newbie writers on this one. So my first bit of advice is just be really positive and be brave. If you've never done it before, you've got nothing to lose. If it's something that you want to do, then just give it a go. You never know where it might take you, and you'll find all sorts of new things out along the way. So keep believing, never give up, I think is a real message. You're going to have good days and bad days, days when the words just won't come, that you find it really frustrating, but then you'll have the other days opposed to that where it just comes so naturally and you're just full of ideas and you're buzzing. So take the rough with the smooth, ride out the tough days, and then just really enjoy those good days. I think get among the writing community, and so I joined Twitter, and I found some amazing support from fellow writers, experienced new ones on there, from asking questions about actual writing technique, ideas, around your story, but also the more technical stuff about how you format, how you actually publish it on the platform. I've made such great contacts with that, and they're so supportive. So definitely would advise doing that. If you need to, hire a professional as well. So for me, I actually did hire an editor, somebody just to kind of polish up my book, give it that kind of real professional finish. Because I say I hadn't done any writing before, don't have any, a professional degree. I think my English is really good, and I did very well at school, but I just wanted somebody just to tighten it up for me. So I think if you need that help, whether it be with plot or character, or with, say, just the polish of the grammar and things, I think, don't be afraid to hire a professional if you need to. And just set yourself loose deadlines as well. I think it's really important. So I think it's important to have a deadline to work to. because it gives you structure, it gives you motivation, something to achieve, but don't set yourself really tight ones. And if you need to be flexible with that, then give yourself, you know, unexpected things in your life will crop up. So for me, COVID happened. So my kids were suddenly at home, and I work in the NHS, which suddenly went really busy. So suddenly the book kind of went on the back burner. So I think, you know, set yourself loose deadlines, so you've got that kind of something to aim for and to keep you ticking over, but don't beat yourself up if you don't ever hit those targets.
Now, I know this is your first book. Will you continue to write? Will you have a second or a third or a fourth? Are you working on anything now?
I've absolutely loved writing, and I've really enjoyed it. So I do actually have another story in the pipeline up here and bits written down. So once No Longer Me is kind of fully out there and being promoted, I might even start before then if I get a chance. So yes, I have found another story. Thankfully this time not life inspired by my story. I think I've had enough dramas, but kind of following a similar kind of ilk. I think I'll kind of go. So yes, I've definitely got that love, and I think I'd like to carry on. So hopefully if I get lovely feedback from No Longer Me and people like my style of writing and enjoy it, then definitely. So watch this space for number 2.
Well, I think that's really good advice on the editor. In fact, I did a blog piece recently on the undervaluing of the editing world, and how a lot of, I think a trap almost for self-published authors is this idea that, oh, I'm smart, or maybe I went to school for English, or, you know, I write things for a living, and so therefore my book doesn't need to be looked at. You know, I used readsy.com to find the editor that I used, but I have read probably more self-published work in the last 6 to 8 months than I have my whole entire life, just trying to be out there supporting other self-published authors. And getting into that world. And I just find that it's you can really tell the difference between somebody who had an editor and didn't have an editor. And you can really tell the difference between somebody who had the work read ahead of time. It's really very striking.
Yeah, I think I was the same, and obviously I'm quite new to this world, and for me it really gave me kind of the backup that actually, you know, the feedback I got from my editor and what she did to it didn't change the story, it didn't change the voice. And I think when you find an editor, you've got to, you know, I looked around, I used the UK site of registered and proofreaders, and a friend or another contact of author said to me, just, you know, you go with your gut. It's like when you find your house or your Mr. Right, you just get that feeling, it just clicks. For me that happened with my editor. You know, she said it was about adding, you know, sparkle and the polish to it, and we just clicked as people. And I think, you know, if you find the right editor that's going to work for you, then that's really important. And for me, because it was kind of based on my life story, I felt that my character and my plot I was quite happy with. But I know, again, you can have editors that more look at, you know, and you can have, I had quite a few people read it for me as well, like beta readers. So a retired English teacher friends of mine read it for me. My parents were both teachers, they read it and gave me feedback as well, you know, about things. And you know, my husband read it, who would never read my style of book, so it's quite good as well to have somebody, you know, completely different, who would never normally pick up that style of book, to read it from a completely different story. And it's interestingly, everybody that reads it picks up something different. So I think it's really useful to make sure you do put it out there to a good few people, because everyone will look at it slightly differently and come from a different viewpoint, and pick up, you know, different typos or different continuity errors, different viewpoints, and it kind of gives you that real all round kind of, you know, rather than just when it's just your head, it's just one viewpoint. It just gives you that, you know, you've kind of fluffed it out around the edges and made it kind of really work as a unit. So for me that was really important, and it has been. And I think doing that as well, I really learned so much about the process as well. And that's what I've really enjoyed, you know, with my editor, looking at it, and really I've learned so much as well. And I have really enjoyed that part. So it wasn't tedious at all. It didn't change my work at all. It just really enhanced it. You know, I was proud of it when I finished it, but I'm even more proud of it now. And I you know, I've read it, but this is my proof copy, hence why it's got the you know,
the line through
line
it.
all the way through it. Yeah, you know, I've read it, and it makes me really proud. And I think I would have been proud without the professional help, but with it, it makes me even more proud. So,
well, I think that's probably because you're recognizing the fact that you learned so much during that process and you got better, right? That's something to be proud of. And I think that's the part of the editing process that people are missing. It isn't about the money. It isn't about somebody telling you that you used a word incorrectly or misspelled something. It's really about them taking your work and pushing you to the next level, so that the next time you write your next work, or you're involved in another project, whether it's a book or a novella or poetry or whatever it is, that you're on another level. And that's the whole idea behind that. Nobody writes that first self-published work and is
No,
getting some Nobel Prize in
exactly.
writing. I mean,
And I
it's
think when I
all,
wrote it, I wrote it and
yeah,
I wrote it and I redrafted and I edited and
yeah,
I lost count of how many times I've done it.
yep.
I think sometimes you get too close to it that actually I
Hmm.
couldn't then see through the trees. And what I needed was to stop and to let somebody else then take it, have a break. And then obviously when it changed, I then was able to kind of then finish it off myself as well. And I think sometimes when you write, that's what happens. You get so close
Yeah,
to
you
it that
can't see it.
you can't see it, and you need to step back and let somebody else take it and work with it. And yeah, absolutely, I've learned so much. It's been so enjoyable, that process. It has been quite stressful at times as well, I think, first time around, because I didn't know what I was doing, particularly the kind of
Neither
format
did I. Don't worry. I don't think
and the
anybody does.
publishing bit of it. I was like, now I've done it once, I kind of know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So that's where, meeting those other authors has been, some people have been so helpful to me, constantly messaging them saying, what did you do with this? How does this work? And likewise, I've now done that to somebody else who's,
Yep.
further behind me. So I'm now kind of share my knowledge that I've got. So yeah, it's really important to kind of make those connections and help each other out. And,
Yeah, you pay it forward. Someone helped you from an
yeah,
editing perspective and taught you things, and now you're doing what you can. And I think that
yeah.
that's a good lead into our next question, which talks about outlining. Are you somebody that outlines before you write, or do you just feel compelled to write and you sit down and just let it go out on paper?
Yeah, so obviously when I came up with the idea of writing my book, it was basically in chatting to a friend of mine about what had happened to me. There was still quite a lot of stuff going on in here.
Yep.
So it's kind of the idea is, why don't you write it down, like write a book? And at that point, it was only ever going to be for me.
Yeah.
So when I did it, I sat down with my computer and I just wrote the gritty bits of the book, the emotional bits for me, and which I say I won't give away too much about what happens, because I want the readers to kind of have that suspense of what
Right.
actually happens. But for me, they're the chapters I wrote first, the 4 or 5 chapters that were quite the emotional, the tough chapters to write. And then I kind of knew I didn't want to write an autobiography. I didn't want to write it as me. So I had these kind of standalone chapters and I was like, what will I do with these now? So then it was about kind of developing a story around it. And what happened was that the kind of chapters I wrote were kind of probably about a third of the way into the book. So then I developed this story around my character. So at that point, I then went back to the beginning and then started and then filled those chapters in. So I didn't really outline to beginning. I went with my heart really and
Yep.
what was in here, and then filled it out. And then kind of what then happened is once I'd written so much, I then needed to outline because I was getting lost. I was like, I think I've written this before and I can't find where it is. And for the kind of the continuity purposes, I needed to have that kind of structure and that outline and to know, I've written that bit already and I need to sort of cut and paste. And so I did then do it. But going forwards with my next story, because obviously it's not based on what happened to me, so I haven't got that. Whereas with my book, it was able to kind of plot and go, well, this happened and this, because that's what happened to me. With my next story, obviously it's not going to be like that. So I very much outlining. I've got an idea. I've got a character in my head. So I very much kind of grow these characters, who they are. I use a timeline of events to keep me, so I know the weather and the time of year is correct, and I keep a fact file of my characters. And then the same thing with the plot. I've kind of got an outline of what's going to happen. I know roughly kind of how many words, having done my first one, and therefore how many chapters, and therefore I've kind of plotted the chapter, kind of what's going to happen as it goes. I think still with the flexibility that can change, but it gives me a kind of a direction right from the start. So the first novel, I think, because it is very much more based on what happened to me, I didn't need that outline as much, but going forward, definitely I will have that outline, but the ability to be flexible and to change it if and how it progresses as I write.
Yeah, it's a great tool. It's something I didn't really, same as you. I didn't use it as much. I sort of sat down and just had a feeling and wrote something out. And then later, when I put it together, it sort of read like I had smushed it together because that was the way that I had written it. And so in reorganizing it and putting it back together, essentially that first draft became an outline, right? It was like, because you're moving it all around. And so that's when you really kind of learn the value of that and how much faster the writing itself can go if you have the outline in front of you, because you know what you're sitting down to write. You don't have to think about where did I leave off and where do I want to go. So
that's
it's a very interesting.
And what I would do every time I wrote is once I went back to the beginning and started from the beginning, I would reread the 3 chapters before I started writing to kind of refresh, get me back in that zone, and kind of then I could then carry on with the flow. And sometimes as well I'd have an outline, but it needed padding out. There was bits where, you know, that's a bit brief, this needs a bit more,
Yep.
you know, in it. So I was then able to fill that out. And I did find really that having the timeline and the character fact file was really important. I'm a little bit OCD for continuity. I hate it when you watch a TV sitcom and within like 3 series the character's birthdays change like 7 times. So I kind of had my fact file of names and dates and also things like you know, as events happen, to make sure if it was a year later that it was actually, you know, suddenly hadn't gone from winter to summer and things like that. And I think the more you write, the more it's easy to get lost in that. And you know you've written something, but you can't find it. Which bit did I write that in? And the more you write, it's not just a question of strolling through pages to find it. So it was really important to have that timeline that I didn't need to actually check back, because I knew actually 6 months later it would be this time, and that can happen, you know. So the timeline and the character around the plot outline as well was really helpful, and I would recommend that. And kind of almost, you kind of in your head you create a person that doesn't actually exist, but you feel like they do, because you've created, even if the stuff's not in the book, you've created that person of who they are, what they like, what they dislike, what their life experiences are. And not all of it makes it onto paper, but you have that character kind of built in your head. And I think it's the same with the outline. You might have more than actually ends up in your book. You might take some of it out, but again, it's about building around that story and around that character and really giving it essence and depth. I think is really important.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're building a character and you do a whole character biography, essentially, where you have every last piece of information about them and you have their backstory and you have the way they look and how they think and how they feel, even if only half of that makes it into the book, somehow that character is much more alive to the reader, because it's so in depth. And so I think that's really great that you do that. Again, those are all tools in the toolkit of a writer, whether you're doing outlining or you're doing a character plot development or you're doing you know, the character bio. Those are all things you want to have at your discretion when you're writing.
And I think having just a notebook, or, you know, I used to use my phone a lot as well, just you know, ideas come to you at the strangest places when sometimes you can't sit down and write. And it really used to frustrate, particularly in bed. It happens to me when I'm about to go into a deep sleep. I get this sudden creative urge, and you know, by the morning it's gone. So I used to find having a notebook just where I could write keywords or key memories. Quite a classic one to me, particularly if I was writing, because obviously I work, I have another job, and I've got kids, so I only kind of have a limited time to write. And sometimes I'd be in really creative flow and I'd have to suddenly go and pick the kids up from school. So I used to ring my landline from my mobile on the school run, walking down the road, reading out what I wanted to write. I'd run out of time to do. And then when I'd get home, I'd dictate it down, so I didn't lose that kind of. So I think having those kind of techniques as well, where when you get that kind of moment of inspiration or the words just suddenly code, you can capture it, is really important as well. And that kind of helps with I think with the outline. And so you don't always use all of it, you know. I think we all write a lot in and then we take bits out and we refine it out. But they were useful tools as well that help me outline. You know, sometimes it might be 2 or 3 ideas. I'd be like, I've got this idea and this idea, and then you might play around with all 3 ideas, have a kind of a prompt and write a paragraph that suited each of the ideas and see which kind of worked best. So sometimes,
you connect with.
And I think sometimes as a writer you feel like everything you write you need to use, and actually sometimes, you know, it's important just to write, just to be creative and to build that kind of expanse. And then, you know, that's what your editing's for, to actually work out which is best and tone it down.
Tone it down, cut it out.
And I've seen other writers do that, go, you know, I've got these 3 ideas, what do you think is the best? And they do polls and things to kind of get that public opinion about actually, you know, which name do you think is best, or which, you know, what would happen most likely if this happened, how would you react? And you get that kind of consensus back from other people, and I think that's quite useful as well to do.
I totally agree. So for our last question, I know you mentioned it a little bit briefly that you have a full-time job and that it's not writing. So what would you be doing if you were not doing writing?
Right. So actually, my job's actually only part-time. I work part-time. So I'm in the UK. So I work in the NHS as an occupational therapist. And I currently specialise in working with people with dementia. But I'm also a mum. I've got 2 young children who keep me very busy. So I spend lots of time being mum as well as being an OT. But I love reading. And I think one of the lovely things about becoming a self-published author is, for me, I would always read big name authors,
Yep.
big name publishers, and it's opened up this whole world of books to me that I just never knew existed. And I've read some amazing books and some
Yeah.
amazing authors. So I just feel like my whole reading world has I've opened up. My to be read list now is like longer than, you know,
Yep. Me
longer than
too.
my height.
Me
Yeah, it's
too.
huge. I love keeping active. Love lots of walks in the countryside, swimming, netball. I love traveling, going anywhere. I'm happy to, you know, any traveling, short breaks, long breaks, holidays, love them all. And just socializing with family and friends and quality time. I think when you read What Happens to Chloe, and you realize what happened to me, I think that kind of real appreciation of life and just spending time with the people that matter. So for me, yeah, spending time with family, friends, and the people that I hold dear is really important. So yeah, anything, you know, I love bike rides with the kids, and just playing family games of cricket or anything like that is, yeah.
And I imagine you're doing some of those to recharge as well, to you know, reset and step away from whether it's work or
Absolutely, yeah. I think in life
writing.
that's, you know, you need to have your downtime as much as your uptime, don't you? So
Yeah.
yeah, obviously I've got my work life, my mum life, and my author life. But it's
That's
important
a
to
lot of hats.
it is a lot of hats, and I do feel I'm a bit of a juggler. Always busy. I'm a bit of a yes girl. I say yes to everything, and I should sometimes learn to say no. But yeah, I love
Well, I am
reading.
glad you didn't say no to this,
No,
because we
I
would have
loved it. I
missed
was very
out.
grateful.
We would have missed out on all these bits of wisdom and all this great advice that you've given to authors, whether this is their first book or their fifth, especially in the self-publishing world. So I
I think
very
that
much appreciate it.
big lesson I've learned as well is just to be really true to yourself. And
Yep.
I think what I've learned, one of my biggest worries in writing, is I'm quite not very self-confident, and I'm also quite sensitive, and I really worried that if I put it out there and I got really critiqued, how would I feel? And I think I've realized it's nothing in life suits everybody, whether it's what you like to eat, whether it's what films you like, what music you like, what books you like to read. Nothing's going to suit everybody, but no matter what you write or how you write, there will be somebody that will enjoy that. And as long as you're true to yourself and you're happy with it and you're proud of what you've done, then be proud of yourself. But somebody out there, you know, will enjoy it and will like it. So not to panic if, you know, it's not everybody's cup of tea. And I think for new writers, I see so many people on Twitter really, you know, despairing about that. And that's the other authors that I've met have really taught me that as well, that, you know, just to be happy in what you've done and be proud of that.
Yeah.
And it will
Yeah.
be.
You learn from it and you move on. And I've given similar advice. I mean, we're all going to have bad reviews at one time. I think I told people and they were shocked. It's like, go look at J.K. Rowling's reviews. She has 1, 2, and 3 reviews, and she is a best-selling, multi best-selling author with movies to her credit. So it happens to every author, but more so, you know, there are things, if it's a real critique, then you take what you can from it and you learn it and you take it into the next book. But if it's just, I don't like it, I don't think this is made for me, or I don't think this is made for women or men, or if the critique is sort of general, or hey, you know, something nasty like this book stinks, then you just ignore it. It's not something it's something that's meant to hurt, and something that's not meant, that's something you can't take anything from. So you ignore it and you move on. So I think that that's good, solid advice for all new writers out there. Yeah. Well, Allie, that is the end of our questions. That's the end of our segment. I can't thank you enough for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'm so looking forward to your book launch, No Longer Me. And
thank you for having me.
In September. Yeah. And thanks for everybody who tuned in to watch. Go check out Allie on Twitter, which I believe your Twitter is at Parks_Allie, ALLY. Is that right?
Yeah, and Parks with an E, PARKES.
Perfect. So go check her out on Twitter, and I'm sure I'll talk to you again on Twitter very soon. But we'll get this up, and thanks to everybody who tuned in. Bye, everyone.
Bye.